is every build hack you'll need in Minecraft 1.21. And hey, the YouTube farmers told me that it's impossible to subscribe to the channel before this sapling grows. So to prove them wrong, bone me on that sub button down below. It's free and it helps out a ton. Minecraft recently got a whole bunch of new paintings to play around with. And while a lot of those look great by themselves, it'll be taken after this user's advice that we can spice them up a bit. Since here with just a couple of stairs facing in different directions, they were able to make a perfect painting frame for the new painting. And considering a lot of the paintings are also really big, I think this does a great job of showing them off at scale. I mean, with this one that we have in this example, it almost looks like a window. And if you really wanted to, you could also make this into a secret entrance like we've shown off in the past. Really, plenty of possibilities for a pretty simple build hack. If you look at some of the more weathered variations of the copper blocks, you'll notice they work particularly well with bricks. And with that, we can take after this example and merge them into our walls to have a perfect looking window design inside of your brick house. Or if you want to, let it get fully oxidized, and then you could just tuck it into your wooden builds like this. And while it is going to take an upfront cost of copper to get this going instead of just smelting up some sand, I think when the results look like this, it's worth considering for sure. You might not expect it, but we're actually able to place down the heavy core that we find inside of the trial chambers, much in the same way that we're able to place mob heads in our world. And it's using that feature that you'll notice that when we place this on top of a wall, it fits perfectly in that space, giving us a great way to top our walls and decorate what would have just been any other shrine. And especially because of how well this blends in with the new tough walls that were added in this update too, I think that's all the more reason to experiment around with this. And with all those new paintings that we have to play around with, we can take this older build hack and give it a new twist. Since while I love what this user did here to use the paintings as fake interiors, I mean, come on, it's simple math. More paintings equals more interiors. And what I will know that they did here particularly well is spacing out the painting from the actual window so that there's a lot more depth when you're looking at the build. Especially when someone's looking up at the top windows from the ground floor, it blends in particularly nicely, as opposed to just being yet another flat painting that you place too close to a window. In 1.21, we got a new gradient of blocks to play around with, but from this angle you might not be able to tell what they are. But switch over to the other side and you're able to see that part of this gradient is using the new crafter block. And really, that's just one of the many different options that we can use with this block. Since with the different directions that we have for this block, we could also face it this way for a button pad, have it right side up as a wall trim at the bottom of your floors, or sneak it behind a couple of slabs or stairs in your wall as some kind of grate. And honestly, all the different build hacks that Penguin laid out here are just brilliant for it. And if anything, I'm just glad to see a block that helps out both the redstone part of the community and the builders in the same breath. Those obviously give us some new textures to use in our builds, but it's not just their textures we're paying attention to. Since this post shows off, it's what you see by looking through those textures that makes them particularly interesting. And now with our new copper grates and frames, we can use this to make a particularly good looking gradient to use inside of our builds. And I for one am a big fan of this one where it goes from the orange of the copper into the blue of the skulk. Or being able to choose between having the blocks in the background all the way up to the cherry petals on top. There's a surprising amount of choice that you get to use here. And if anything, it's just a good reminder that it's not just the blocks that you're building with, but also the different layers of depth that you can add to your build. The copper golem was never added to Minecraft, and while that's definitely an unfortunate circumstance, if you look at a build like this, you'd think that it was added in the most recent update. Since here we've got a great design for a dismantled copper golem. And while I think it looks great to use a carved pumpkin and some roots underneath it like this example, the option to use a chain underneath and then the copper bulb up top also looks particularly good in my opinion. It's no surprise that if you look at the front of the crafter, it's very intentionally supposed to look like a face. I mean, you could even look at Minecraft's concept art and see that this was intentional. And so given that, it was only a matter of time before some people in the community decided that we could make a little robot out of this thing. And this example by Theo Tries does it particularly well. Here, mixing it together with armor stands, not just for the little hat on top, but also for the limbs that stick out of it, looks great. It reminds me of an enemy from Kirby, if anything. And I think the fact that both the armor stand and the crafter use some kind of oak plank texture inside of them sells this illusion even better. And while it might be a pain getting all the armor stands to line up to build this, I mean, look at this part of the post to see just that. But if you're willing to go through the effort, then the results clearly pay off. Now that we've got all these new paintings to play around with, it can be easy to forget our old ones. But I'd ask you to not do that just yet, since by just putting some of these paintings side by side, you can notice that these blend particularly well together. And I for one love the idea of just having our paintings slowly branch out with every new one that they add. I mean, clearly gradients in Minecraft building are already great, so having the option to do this with the paintings in game, that's particularly special in my eyes. But also make sure that you have a good enough space in your build to be able to try this out, because having 6 blocks of horizontal horizontal space to show this off, that's asking quite a bit in Minecraft economics. But if you got a mega base, this will fit in just perfectly. Mining down in the caves can be particularly lonely, especially if you're strip mining. And considering that usually the other options we have for company just try to kill us, I'd much rather have this option for the crafter refill station. Here we got a little crafter buddy with its arm held out for a high five. And then when you go over and do its secret handshake, you notice it's not just a little buddy that's waving to you, but it'll also refill that pickaxe that you just broke. And I think before you get mending or unbreaking in your tools, this could be a great thing to have for those early mining sessions, where you've got just enough for iron, but not much past that. And hey, it's companionship, so you can't put a price on that, and if you could, it's 5 iron ingots. And if you don't go ahead and add in the lever on the side of the crafter, you'll notice that on the side of the texture, this here works particularly well as looking like a phone. So add it on top of a wall with a couple of trapdoors beside it, and we've basically got ourselves a payphone inside of our world. And for the final bits, you can add in a lever with an iron bar on top, finishing it off with a redstone torch for the antenna, and just an empty flower pot to decorate this part on the top, giving you a good looking payphone, and I guess technically the crafter's still usable if you flip this lever. It just might not look as good as the payphone when you do that. You're sacrificing form for function, so choose which one's more important to you at the time. With all the new trapdoors that we got added into the game, that obviously means that we're gonna get a bunch of trapdoor specific build hacks. And perhaps my favorite so far is particularly simple. All we have to do is just place down our chiseled copper blocks in all of our different tones, and then add a matching trapdoor on top of it. Then with a few buttons on the side, we've basically got industrial copper barrels to decorate your build with. And so if you're building something that's more on the radioactive side, I think this works particularly well. I mean, if anything, I'd much rather store toxic waste inside of one of these things instead of a barrel made of spruce. And better still, as this example shows off, if you want to build a bigger barrel, just simply take that 1x1 up to a 2x2. And then with even more buttons and trapdoors, it'll still look good at any scale. You ever walked into a villager's house and thought they were really overdoing it just for a blast furnace? I mean, all of this decoration around it, that just seems excessive. And while I can't say that this solves it, I will say that we can add in one of our own. And so by taking after this example to have our furnace on top of a crafter, then that lower crafter block looks like an oven. And if you got creative, probably using something like a debug stick would be the easiest way to do this. But when you blend it in with the stone bricks around the other sides of our furnace, the top and bottom parts of the crafter texture blend really well with the surrounding blocks. And honestly, even if you just put the blast furnace on top of something like this, it'll at least make a lot more sense for what you got all around it. At least then it's 2 usable blocks instead of just 1. In case you forgot to disable fire tick in your world, you're gonna want a fire escape for your build. I mean, after all, we're not the Disney Star Wars hotel. We should probably build one of ours with these. And what user Original Bubble did in their world, I think makes it look really nice. Now, if you wanted to blend in more with the brick side of your build, then you could just use one of the more weathered options of copper. But if you want it to pop out, maybe for safety reasons, then the full oxidized version stands out really nicely against the browns of the bricks. And I just really love how in this example they're using the fences with the trapdoors on top of them for the stairs. If anything, it's maybe the first example I've seen of jungle wood actually being used well. But hey, if we're able to have the illusion of safety just to get past OSHA, that's fine by me. In the past, we've shown off this build hack to make a simple looking stovetop inside of your kitchen. And while that still looks great in the newer updates, I think what we can see here in this user's post makes it look even better with adding in the copper trapdoors. For one, they cross over the hopper part of the minecart texture in such a way where it actually looks like a gas burner on a stovetop. And then by adding in some campfire smoke underneath to give that illusion of the particle effects, I think this ends up working just great in any kitchen you put it in. And considering we're not getting the frying pan from the April Fool's potato update anytime soon, I think this is more than fine to use if you want to. What's the first thing you think of when you see a shulker? Well, if you're like me, you probably often find it annoying. But now here we'll see that the levitation effect that they give us isn't the only way that they can help us get serious airtime. And by using these shulkers placed on walls like this, we're able to add in the Mace's Windburst enchantment to essentially give us spring pads while we're doing a parkour course. And hey, using commands and other ways to change the colors of the shulkers, you could really put this to good use inside of your next parkour map. And if anything, it's just an excuse to get back at those shulkers for all the times they killed you inside of the end. All I'm hearing is pros, folks. So if you also want to get out your anger on the things, this is at least a more fun way to do it than typing /kill all. Ever since 1.21, tough blocks are going to get a lot more love in the building community. And when they look like this, I say rightfully so. And I especially love this example that Hey Joe Hey built, where we can almost blend together the textures of the different tough blocks, and using that make a gradient into our pillars. I mean, if you ask me, this is the best advertisement for the stone cutter I've seen. And so if you're already going to get plenty of these blocks if you go and excavate through your local trial chamber, this is maybe the easiest way to start using it in inside of your building world. And speaking as someone who loves to use dark gray inside of my palette, I plan to tuck these anywhere that I can. But taking after what Falcon Punch 100 did in this post, using the stairs and other slabs to make it look as if they're broken pillars inside of an ancient temple, that's just too good to pass up on. In our new update, we've also got new armor trims to play around with. And if armor stands have taught us anything, then it's that these armor trims can also blend particularly well inside of our build hacks. And my newest favorite one is using the Bolt armor trim to make our own recreation of Tron inside of Minecraft. And whether you want to go for the original suits where you put diamonds on top of our iron armor, or instead add that blue to netherite to make it look more like the newer movies, whichever you prefer, I think both work just fine. And considering just how well the stained glass panes look on the floor as light trails from the light bike, I wouldn't be opposed to someone using this as the armor inside of their next Tron minigame. Just saying. We've seen a lot of different elevators in Minecraft, but this perhaps has to be the strangest. But even though it's strange, doesn't mean that it's not effective. And as we can see, just by tucking a bunch of villagers inside of the fences like this, if we equip ourselves with a Windburst mace, we can then chase ourselves up with villagers right up to the top of this elevator shaft. And while that's all well and good, I think what really sells this post for me is the fact that it was originally made by someone with the username SavagePlayer64. And when you're doing this for this many villagers, I think you earn that name well over 64 times. But hey, I'm gonna use it too, so maybe that makes me Savage Player 65. In my personal opinion, Cyberpunk is one of those build styles that's really hard to pull off, but once you do, it looks just fantastic. And what I personally love to see is when people use the paintings as some form of graffiti on the sides of their walls. And while this was originally built before the new paintings were even teased for Minecraft, I think with all the new ones that we got to play around with, our Cyberpunk build's just got a lot more of a story to tell. And I think covering up parts of the paintings too can make it look even like a new painting inside of your world. I mean, look at this example in the original post where the end rods are crossing over this figure in the painting. Even though I'm familiar with the original, and I have been for years, if I didn't look too closely, I'd think it was something entirely new. And that's the kind of ingenuity I always love to see with every new update. Unfortunately, it's impossible for us to stack our heavy cores on top of one another. But while that seems like it would be a downside, when you look at a pattern like this, it might make you want to reconsider. Since by alternating between a heavy core, a wall, and another heavy core on top, we can take after this zigzag pattern and add ourselves a kind of raindrop effect inside of your walls. And using this to texture the outside of a building would look particularly cool. Just also costs a whole lot of heavy cores, so maybe save this one for the creative world. Not only do we have new armor trims to play around with, but we've also got new banner patterns. And once you've settled on all the different layers of banner patterns that you want to use, you can then take those custom banners, add them to the back of a trapdoor like this, and then finally with an armor stand tucked into place, it looks as if you got yourself an easel for an art class. And really what I love most about this original example is just the fact that they actually have a pineapple that they're drawing inside of the middle table. That's just too perfect. And with all the different designs that you can make for banner patterns, such as many of the ones that we've shown off in this video, there's a whole bunch of still life subjects to choose from. Pick your favorite and get ready to enroll in class. A common build hack in the past was using all of these trapdoors to make something out of a trap to catch rabbits inside of. And today we'll see that by switching out those spruce trapdoors for ones of the copper variety, we no longer have a trap, we instead have a crate for our pets. And come on, with all the new wolves that we've gotten in the Armored Paws update, I think they also need something new to hang out in. Just also make sure that you sit them down inside of the crate. Otherwise, if they're not properly crate trained, they're just gonna teleport out like wolves do. Though I can't say I blame them. I also don't like to be trapped in small spaces. While we still don't have any copper fence blocks to play around with, what we do have, as Sad Milkman shows off, is the ability to set back our copper grates like this, and then when placed in such a way, it looks as if we have copper fence that's linking between these copper pillars. And as long as you make sure that people only see it from this angle, then you should be good. You can even add in some copper lightning rods on top of this, and ensure that if you ever get a lightning storm, at least all your copper's not gonna oxidize. With the help of waterlogged stairs, we can make a rim of waterlogged like this, and then within that water, place in our copper grate blocks and add in a storm drain that you can use to line the sides of your streets. Though if you're gonna do this, I'd recommend showing it a little bit more oxidized. Call me a pessimist, but I'm not exactly sure that this much water flowing through a copper grate would keep it looking this nice all the time. But who knows, maybe it's an electrified current. In that case, I'm glad the water's getting drained. I don't want to step foot in it either. And with that, folks, YouTube thinks that you might like this video, so see if they're right and have a good one, alright?